Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we are gonna vent hard. Everybody has always been saying how bad and negative venting is. If you search here on YouTube, you will see that the majority of the content on here are demonizing it for a reason. Because research have shown that venting can have negative impact on our and other people's emotional state, thus harming relationships and making us feel worse over time. Personally, before I believe in anything anybody else says, I like to think and reflect on myself. I like to see where the research is coming from. I like to understand other people's perspective and make a well-rounded conclusion out of it. My conclusion. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, this topic may seem very simple or black and white, but when I thought about it, it is way more complex and grey than I thought it would be. For example, if you ask an avoidant what they think about venting, they may tell you it is an absolute sin because they do not like to share vulnerabilities and intimacy with others. They fear that. However, as somebody coming from an anxious attachment style, I cannot count how many times venting, which in my dictionary it is called sharing vulnerability, has helped me in difficult moments and struggles of life. Alright, let's talk about what is venting. Some people may associate venting as complaining. Some people associate venting with sharing vulnerabilities. Some people associate venting with expressing strong emotions like anger or frustration. In my humble opinion, venting has a notion of releasing pressure from a valve or needing to let out of some of the steam over a pressure cooker. And you can definitely vent about both negative and positive matters. For example, you may have a really good news. Okay, say you just passed your test. You're so excited that you cannot contain the excitement and you just had to tell someone about it now. But most commonly, venting describes a negative behavior of sharing or letting negative emotions out. So that's what I will be referring to for the rest of this video. Before we dive deep, it is extremely important to become aware of the reasons for venting. What are some of the root causes for us wanting to vent or share vulnerabilities? Reason number one, solution-focused venting, which means you are venting with a goal of coming up with a solution to your presenting problem. If you're venting because of reason number one, you basically don't really have a solution to your issue. You may have thought about it and tried to find a solution yourself, but nothing seems solid and something you are willing to stick to. You don't know what to do yourself and you want to talk to someone about it with a goal to bounce ideas off each other to come up with a solution for it together. At the end of venting, you may or may not have the solution formulated ready to go, but at least you are self-aware about yourself and the presenting problem, and that is still progress. Basically, it is like having a solution-oriented coaching session with someone. Reason number two, venting for validation. In this option, which is also solution-focused, you actually have a valuable solution in mind. You know what to do and what you're going to do, but somehow, because of fear and self-doubt and the lack of self-trust, you're not sure if your decision is good enough to execute. So you vent to someone you trust for their second opinion. Deep down, 90% chance you are going to go ahead with your solution no matter what the other person says, but you still want that validation to feel better about your decision. It's like having some sort of comfort rub on your ego. Reason number three, emotion-focused venting, which means you are venting for emotional regulation. This is usually what people refer to when they are talking about venting for anger or depression. Usually people who vent for emotional regulation or processing are people who have been through some sort of trauma and they haven't learned how to regulate their emotions in a healthy way. Therefore need other people to help them process emotions. Usually this type of venting is not solution focused, so it can be a bit tricky, which I will explain in detail in the second part of this video. Reason number four, venting or sharing for connection. In this category, you have a solution which you trust that will work or is working for your presenting problem. You're not searching for validation or emotional regulation or problem solving. In fact, you don't even need to talk about it with anyone, but you choose to share your vulnerabilities with others to connect with them on an intimate level. I guess in this category, you are craving more of an emotional connection rather than releasing. I hope now you understand the importance of understanding the root causes of venting. because once I'm aware of the reasons why I vent or why I have the urge to vent, everything starts to clear up in terms of why venting sometimes feels extremely useful for me and sometimes not so much. Now, we're going to go through all 4 reasons of venting in detail to figure out how to navigate the behavior of venting in a healthy and helpful way. If you can relate and find yourself venting for any of those reasons mentioned. If you find yourself venting for reason number 1, you know you are deeply bothered by a presenting problem and you desperately want to figure out a solution to feel better about your situation. You may want other people to give you ideas and tell you what they think you should do, have a discussion. I understand this feeling of just wanting to be unstuck. However, like all types of venting, you need to be very selective in who you share your vulnerabilities with and know that other people and other people's experiences are likely to be very different from yours. So the advice they offer you may not be the best for you. To be as effective as possible, you may want to talk to somebody who has a little bit of experience or expertise in your situation versus talking to anybody who has no idea what you're talking about or somebody who is not solution oriented themselves. If you were given any advice, please take what they say with a grain of salt or use the conversation as an incubator for you to come up with your own solution. The ideal people that will get you the result you want are trained coaches. Being a coach myself and having done a lot of coaching and counseling in my life, I genuinely believe coaching is the best thing for solution-focused practice, or just wanting to get unstuck. Arguably, I think it is way more superior to therapy for solution-oriented goals and moving forward in life. Personally, I think the solution you come up with yourself is ultimately the best solution for you and your situation, and there's no place like good coaching that just does it so beautifully, connecting you to your authentic self and building up your resilience to come up with your own solution. So whether venting for reason number 1 is helpful or not really depends on who you are talking to. If you find yourself venting for reason number 2, where you already have the solution and just want other people to validate your decision and basically agree with you, hear this out. Your issue now is not really the presenting problem you're solving, but the lack of self-trust and self-validation. I can relate to this type of venting so much because I'm usually pretty good at coming up with my own solutions, but I also doubt myself a lot because most decisions you make in life have gives and takes, and you just cannot be 100% certain with everything most of the time. And when I tell others about it, if they disagree with my decision and tell me to do something opposite, I would get so angry with them for not understanding where I'm coming from. And then I would try to explain myself why I choose to do things this way and try to justify my solution plan, which is basically a waste of my time. If your solution is coming from the depth of your heart, and that means this idea or plan or whatever decision you're motivated to execute is so unwaveringly strong and firm, it does not come and go. You know this intuition of when you know you know? I want you to have the faith to believe that it is coming from the divine, God, the Holy Spirit, and that is enough for you to trust it. Of course, we are human and we all have moments where we doubt ourselves and we are not sure about things, and there is benefit to questioning ourselves sometimes. But the majority of the time, whatever you are guided to do by your heart, by the Spirit, is right for you. So there's no need to prove yourself to others, there's no need to prove your worth or to prove that you are right, because only you know what is the best for you. Only you know how you're truly feeling at this moment. This also reminds me of the concept of borrowing self from others. In this case, we are borrowing others to validate us, which we could have done for ourselves. What I don't want you to do is to beat yourself up for venting to others for this reason, because everybody is saying how terrible venting is. Sometimes you may even get inspiration from others to improve your already developed solution. Ultimately, some people have better self-trust because maybe the decisions they made in their lives have always worked out for them in a positive way, and for some, not all the time. So we're all on different levels of self-trust journey, but I believe with more practice of self-reliance on validation is going to get us better with self-trust than venting to others and expecting them to agree with you. If you find yourself venting for reason number 3, which is related to emotional regulation, trust me, I have been there so many times. You are not alone. If you are insecurely attached when you were a child and struggle to process your own emotion because you just never learned how to, it is not your fault. But we do have the ability to turn the table around now as an adult. It is incredibly frustrating when you are going through negative emotions and you don't really know how to let it out and express it in a healthy way. So if you are venting for this reason, again, like all venting, you need to choose wisely who you open up to, but specifically, you need empathic people around. For some people, verbalizing it to others works wonders for processing emotions, so therapeutic counseling is the best option for this. Coaching is also good, but not as good as a good old therapist. There is a danger for you venting to any other people in your family or friendship circle or workplace if they don't know how to be empathic, because when you are emotionally vulnerable, an inappropriate response can really hurt and trigger you and also can strain your relationships with others because other people are not trained to deal with lots of negative emotions. That's why I think the research is showing that people who vent a lot actually makes them feel worse about themselves over time. There's no research showing that opening up your vulnerability in a therapy or coaching session is making people feel worse. However, the behavior of venting is the same though. Do you see what I mean? In my opinion, expressing it out verbally in a calm and controlled way about a negative emotion such as anger is so much better than getting into a hot fight and punching pillows, because those activities are just going to make you more activated and reinforce this pattern of getting more and more angry. So in that sense, grounding techniques like breathing, tapping, meditation, and also therapeutic venting to yourself or others is extremely helpful. Another critique of venting for emotional regulation, which I agree with, is the lack of solution to help you improve and move forward. In a way, this is just another coping mechanism to temporarily release you from your negative emotions when it comes up. But without actually learning how to regulate your emotions yourself, you become codependent in the long run in regulating your own emotions. So it doesn't really solve the root issue. Also, because you are stuck in your emotions, you are not geared towards or have the mental space for any solution-focused practice, which over time can be quite a selfish act to constantly rely on other people to help you process your emotions, which ultimately prevents true connection. And it can be very draining for both parties. This is usually what people refer to as energy vampires who are always complaining, even though personally I don't see it as complaining, but rather an unhealthy way of emotional regulation. Now you might ask me, Grace, do I even have hope at this point? Well, there is. In the right condition. If you're able to do some therapeutic venting, i.e. sharing your vulnerability with a good therapist, coach, or somebody you trust, that are able to be empathic, which is possible. I have studied counseling before, so I know how to be empathic and how much training it requires for somebody to be good at being empathic properly. And I know some people even have undergone this type of training but are just not made for this. However, I have met one person in my life who is able to respond the same way as a therapist naturally, but they're rare. Once you're able to see how they respond to you and how they help you to process your emotions with you, now I want you to observe everything they say to you, model that, and learn to be just as kind and empathic with yourself alone. I'm not saying this is easy. It may take several, if not more, attempts of practice to get the swing of it. And you may still need a lot of therapy or coaching during this process to help you learn how to and find out what is the best way to regulate your own emotions, as we're all different. But with practice, it is possible. The end goal here is to learn how to regulate your own emotions independently. However long it takes for you to get there, it doesn't matter. As long as you are improving even just a little bit at a time, it is worth the healing. Lastly, if you find yourself venting for reason number 4, Congratulations, you're on the right track. I would say reason number 4, venting or sharing for connection, is by far the healthiest way of venting. That's why I would rather call it sharing vulnerabilities, because you don't really have the pressure of needing to share. You choose to share when you want to build a connection. Think about each person in the bubble, and you have your solution, self trust of that solution, and emotional self regulation all in the same independent bubble with you. You don't need to borrow any of that from other people you interact with, which creates an authentic connecting experience with the other person without any unconscious ulterior motives. If you share your vulnerabilities with your solution, how you deal with it, how you're going to overcome it, in a sense, you are taking full ownership and responsibility for solving your problems. Even if you don't have a solution right now, you can still be honest about the fact that you're in the process of finding a solution. You're on it. And now you're just sharing to connect with others through authenticity, because you know what? Life can be a surprise. Life is not always smooth sailing, and even if you don't share anything, we all know things can be rough. I have friends who don't want to share anything private about them with me. Maybe they are scared of it turning into a gossip or venting conversation, which they are demonizing it themselves. But at the end of the day, if you only ask other people to share their vulnerability and you never share anything about yourself, it soon becomes an one-sided relationship that will never get any closer than how it is now. If not, it will even regress to a quiet friendship breakup. So, never venting or sharing anything is also very healthy if you want to have genuine social connection, which we all need in any successful intimate relationships. I hope this gives you a well-rounded perspective on why we vent, what to work on about venting, and how to vent or share in a healthy way. Personally, I think raising self-awareness about all aspects of venting is far more meaningful than just demonizing venting and asking everybody to stop. Because people are not just going to magically stop a behavior when you tell them to. Understanding plays a big role in changing. And as discussed, I don't think venting is all bad. I find that noticing I have an urge to talk about a problem to others repeatedly is a sign that something needs to change. Something is off. While I don't really want to do that to someone around me repeatedly, it doesn't mean I cannot vent to myself. As a bonus to watching to the end of this video, I'm going to share a helpful strategy to pair with venting, which is to set a strike limit to how many times you vent about something before you have to stop and seriously just get it on the priority list to find a solution or do something about it now. For example, if I set myself a strike limit of 5 times of venting about how tired and miserable I am in a job, by the 5th time I'm venting about it either to someone or to myself, I'm gonna make a plan to change my job, period. No matter where you are in your journey, know that it is very human to vent or share vulnerabilities in a healthy way with each other for deep social connection. And it is okay if sometimes you still find yourself venting for reasons number 1, 2, 3, because none of us are perfect. After all, becoming more self-aware encourages all of us to choose a healthier way of connecting naturally. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with anybody you think might enjoy this message. And I will see you next time.